at 7:05 p.m. Please keep in mind these meetings may be audio or visually recorded. Will any members present please state their name for the record?
Sarah Rodriguez.
Abigail Malamed.
Austin Britton.
Matthew Bravo is chair. Seeing as there are 5 members present, quorum has been established. Will any members of the public please state their name as well?
Tyler Sklar.
Andrew Larson.
Senator Lucas Madell.
Alright, and we now move into the consideration of judicial nominations. We will start with Hagen Turner, the nominee for Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I will give everybody 5 minutes to look over his resume and application answers. Also, I know that there may be members of the committee who read over these beforehand, as like we all probably should have. So if you've seen his resume prior to this and you don't need any more time, just I guess hold your hand up and okay, cool. All right. We now move into the debate section. So, do I hear any debate over the nominees?
So this person has noted that they previously served as an HE head student senator. Do we know how long ago that was for serving?
I am not sure. He didn't specify the years on his resume for each specific position.
Mm-hmm.
It does say since he received his bachelor's in 2024, I mean, my guess would probably be within 2020 to 2024 range.
Yeah.
I will say that I do not believe Mr. Turner has been in Senate during when either you or I were, because I don't remember him.
No, and I know for judicial nominees, there's no set timeline. You have to have a certain gap like there are in other positions.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what that gap is, I think for myself, you wouldn't want someone jumping straight from Senate to something else or run an applicant gap. So if we knew what that gap was, I think I'd feel happier, but at least it's been a year, so I'm pretty comfortable with that, yeah.
And my guess would typically be that it says he was an agency head, he probably served as an agency head in either his junior or senior year.
Do you know what agency?
Doesn't say on here either, so I'm not quite sure, but he probably served as an agency head in junior or senior year. So my guess would probably have been he was a senator freshman or sophomore, as agency head is exclusionary.
Mm-hmm.
I know certain things like with the law school up here, he's expected 2027, so he's, correct me if I'm wrong, a 1L right now, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So know a bit about those dates. Also, when it comes with some of the intern stuff, you can't really garner a ton from it as far as like dates of when he was in, or not dates, but what year and how far along based on some of the student positions he was. But to get an internship like interning for the clerk of county court. I would say that's probably like a junior summer internship, so he probably had a good amount of SG experience going into it, which helped him get the internship. So.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by his experience in the courtroom, whether it's with his internship at the law office of Craig W. Turner, or whether it's the Marion County Clerk of Court. I think that those are both very impressive positions, and would give him experience in the role of a judicial justice, especially for the role of Chief Justice.
I also think that it's pretty impressive that it's like top 5% of his class at law school. I think that he kind of backs it up in the education sense too. And obviously in undergrad he was agency head and he was a senator, so he kind of knows all the student government processes and things. So I think that's very good.
Yeah, he's also a member of the John Marshall Bar Association, which to be a 1L and get that is pretty impressive. Most people in it are typically second or third year law students, and that's probably reflective of his GPA and class rank and accolades that he's received both in law and undergrad. So.
Yeah, I think he's got some pretty good experience. I think especially since it's for Chief Justice as well, I think I'm a bit hesitant for a 1L because that's someone who has to not only know it well enough to be a voice of 5, but also to lead that group. And I think that's an additional thing. I think his ranking and his other positions show that he is a strong contender in that. I wish I had more details about some of these things to make sure I felt fully confident in the role of Chief Justice, but I think nothing here is a red flag or anything. I just wish I had some more of those details.
All right, do I hear any more debate? All right, hearing none, we now move into a vote over Hagen Turner. Do I hear any motions actually, there aren't any other motions we can do. We either approve or disapprove it. So we'll now move into a vote over Hagen Turner for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, Chair abstains, seeing a vote of 4-0, Hagen Turner's nomination has been approved. We now move into the second nominee, Adeline Gerkin. We'll give 5 minutes for everybody to read her resume and answers. If you've had adequate enough time, you can raise your hand. Okay, great. All right, we now move into the pro-con discussion period for Adeline Gerkin. Does anybody have any debate?
Yeah, I think that this is another really strong candidate. She is a 1L as well. However, looking into her undergraduate experience, it is plentiful. She was an election commission chair in the student government here at UF. She also interned for the 8th Circuit Public Defender's Office. These are, and the House of Representatives in Washington DC. These are all internships and positions in which would prepare her to be a justice on the Supreme Court that I think make her experienced enough of a candidate for us to possibly approve.
Yeah, being the Student Government Elections Commission Chair, I feel like that directly correlates with being on the Supreme Court. A lot of times you deal with issues regarding whether they be ballot referendum issues, constitutionality issues, code issues on the Election Commission. Those all relate to what you're going to have to do as a Supreme Court Justice. And the fact that she was chair of that shows a lot of experience in my opinion. So.
I agree. I think that's a position that is one of the best to prepare you for something like this. So I think, and with the answers given and the experience, I think that this was an excellent candidate for this position.
I agree further with everyone here. Her experiences speaks highly about what she can do on the court, and also her idea of clear communication and transparency is something I really like, and I think all Supreme Court's justices should be wanting to further that initiative. So it's good.
Alright, is there any more debate on Adeline Gerkin? Hearing none, we now move into the vote on the nomination of Adeline Gerkin. Okay, so all those in favor of approving her to the Supreme Court, raise your hand. Okay, a vote of 4-0, with the chair abstaining, or not abstaining, sorry. I guess you just say like chair doesn't need to vote. Chair only votes in case of ties, by the way. That vote passes. All right, now we move into the nomination for Supervisor of Elections, Lexi Sederopoulos. I'll give everybody 5 minutes to read over her resume and answers as well. Feel if you've had adequate enough time, or if you've read it prior, you can raise your hand. Yes. Okay. All right. We now move into debate over SOE nominee Lexi Sederopoulos. Does anybody have any debate?
And obviously she's already been supervisor of elections, and almost her entire time in undergraduate she's been in this electoral process. And I think that experience and passion really shows in her responses. You can really tell that she's qualified and she knows what she's talking about. I think she's, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind.
think it's also important that while she was in the role, she expanded upon what the role actually does. So for example, she hosted the first ever ASOE information cycle to help onboard and train ASOEs before the cycle officially began. She has that in her response under internal operations. So doing things that are not necessarily put in the codes for the role to do, but expanding upon the role you're actually given is a good sign that you've been a solid leader in the role that you've been given. So she showed it as a past ASOE, and I think she can do it again.
Yeah, I think even her talking about knowing UF's 34-page election code front and back is really impressive, and knowing the rules and applying them, having experience applying them in the past, is a really vital aspect of this role. And so just her experience alone in the past and the way that she's conducted elections, them being successful, have proven that she's an excellent candidate for the supervisor election role again.
Yeah, I think this is a really strong candidate. Obviously, her experience speaks really well to not only what roles she's had, but how she's used those roles and expanded upon them to make them and shows them that she can be a leader in this sort of position. I think when we talk about things like elections, one of the biggest things is we do not have a high turnout in any of our elections. And I think I wish I would see more here about how she thinks she could fix that. She does talk about student engagement and some steps for that. So that, that is leaning into that. But I think, going directly into that avenue and saying how do we increase student turnout and making sure these elections are as best as possible is what they would like to see. But I mean, with all she wrote, I think that's me asking for $1 billion and one things when she's pretty brilliant. So it's not a negative in any way towards this candidate.
All right, any further debate on the nominee? All right, we now move into a vote over whether to approve Lexi Sederopoulos for the open supervisor of elections position. All those in favor? Okay, voted 4-0. That has been approved. So, okay, now we move into hearing bills. So we now move into hearing SSB 2025-1084. Seeing as there is an author present, you will have 5 minutes to present whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, if you don't know me already, my name is Senator Lucas Nadeau. Not only am I a senator, I'm also a member of the Interresidence Law Association, which this bill deals with. From the past, so just a bit of background about IRHA. IRHA is a university student-sponsored organization, and what that means is typically they would not be allowed to sponsor or author bills, given that they are not a RSO, they're not funded by student government. However, there is a clause specifically in those procedures stating that any executive board member of IRHA or any area government member, so any boards below that, members of those can sponsor bills. This bill came to be because the current Interresidence Law Association President Kaylee Kajowski emailed Senate leadership asking specifically for that clause to be removed. There's been a history of IRHA ever since it became fully under housing's purview, that they are nonpartisan. And regardless if there's any intent of partisanship with any bill whatsoever, they are trying to steer clear of legislative processes outside of IRHA. So what this clause does kind of undermines that, regardless of whether or not it's intentional. They want that removed so that way there's a clear distinction between the two organizations, and that way in case any area government member does sponsor it, it doesn't look bad on IRHA because they're not supposed to sponsor it on behalf of their area government, because it looks bad if it's for some reason political, even if they didn't mean for it to be political. It looks bad on IRHA, it looks bad on housing, it looks bad at UF. So overall, this is just something that I want to remove so that way nothing like that happens. I'm happy to answer any questions. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Senator Nadeau? I actually do have one question. I remember you talked to me about an amendment on here. You wanted it stricken, but it looks like it already is.
So it is stricken on here. When I first viewed it, when we first sent out the email, it did not, on my end, it did not look like it was stricken, but then I viewed it today and it did.
Sounds good. Okay.
I actually have a question. How often do these members actually sponsor pieces of legislation currently?
So currently, I've not known of any instances where area members have sponsored because it's so locked down on the IRA side that they tell the members to not do that. So this is just officializing it on the Senate side, and we're working to officialize that in the IRA side as well.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other questions? Actually, you also want us to add a sponsor? If I'm sorry, we can get to that in debate or motions if you want to, Austin.
Yeah, I've got the two sponsors and one person for the reason line.
Sounds good.
They're listed, so.
Alright, do I hear any further questions for Senator? No? Okay, we now move into debate. Is there any debate? Also, if you wanna talk about who you're adding, you can.
Yeah, so there are just two sponsors that the author wanted to add, Senators Priya Shram and Mahit Badam to the sponsors line, and then the IRA President Kaylee Krodowski to the proviso line, as they asked for that, and to get this.
Okay.
But no, I think overall for debate, I think, IRA wants this. They don't want to have this in here anymore. It's something that's not being used, so I think it's mostly us just cleaning up the codes for something that's not going to be utilized to make sure that they don't have to worry about going against what they believe the organization is for in any current and future sense. So I think it's very easily done.
Sounds good. I am, as far as code changes go, I believe you can have provisos, but I haven't seen one on any of the last 30 code changes we've looked at. I'm looking right now in the past, but I'm not exactly sure.
I don't know if there's any that we've had that have provisions.
I feel like maybe then you can't. Let me look at them in the codes, but if not, worst case, we can just email it to her, or I believe it's the IRA president you wanted to put in there. Okay, yeah, we could email that to her. Okay, so it says code revisions shall refer to Black's Law Dictionary definition of a proviso alongside other privileges outlined in Rule XIV Section 1. So let's go there.
You said the Black's Law Dictionary?
Yes. I cannot see it as of right now. Let me know if y'all do.
You're
But
trying to find the proviso definition?
yeah,
I found the proviso definition, but it's talking about deeds, leases, mortgages, and contract.
yeah, then that's definitely not it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a single. I'm looking back at the former bills. A single code change with a proviso. So if
How about this one?
let's take a look. Okay, sounds good. All right, let's add it. Okay, so we are actually almost out of debate time. Does anybody have any further debate? All right, we now move into motions. Do I hear any motions at this time?
I move to add Senators Priya Shram and Mahit Badam to the sponsors line by unanimous consent.
There's been a motion made to add two senators to the sponsor line by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes. Would you mind spelling those for me, Senator? I think I
I
know Priya is Prya, and then
No.
Priya.
Priy.
Y, yeah.
Yeah.
And then SCH.
RAMM.
Okay,
And then Mahit Badam, MAHIT BADDAM. That's right. I move to add to amend to add a sponsor proviso line and add the Inter-Resident Health Association President Kaylee Podolsky to that line by unanimous consent.
There's been a motion made to add the IRA president to the proviso line by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Okay,
Do you need that spelled out?
let's please hold up.
Well, is it a resolution?
A copy of this code change, yeah, thank you. Code change shall be sent to
KAYLEE.
K-A-Y,
Like that.
thank you. K-A-Y-L-E-E. I can put. Association. That's good. That looked good. Alright, thank you. Okay, tell me when that pops up for y'all. I also need to put it in italics.
President is missing a T.
Where's that T?
I move to pass SSB 2025-1084 by unanimous consent.
There's been a motion made to pass SSB 2025-1084 by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. We now move into SSB 2025-1085. There is a sponsor present, actually two sponsors present. So if any of them would like to present, please.
Yeah, so this is adjusting the land acknowledgement to make it actually fit what we do, so it doesn't have to be read by the chair of the Senate with the codes, and to fix the text to include the different peoples that yours, what is it, the date on the previous one was longer, so we've made it shorter and more succinct, but including that respect. And then we've added the additional thing that it could be modified to commemorate specific tribes, holidays, or events as it's fit. And that's it. I yield the rest of my time.
Do you have anything to say?
No, that's.
All right, now moving to the question and answer period. Are there any questions? I have one. So do you see the implementation of that ad lib section as possibly leading to filibustering happening in the future?
I don't think so. And I think so because it's ad-libbed to commemorate those specific things. So I think if someone went off to not commemorate those specific things, I think that the chair would be in line to stop them and say that they're not following the process of the day and not following the agenda.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, hearing none, we now move into debate. 5 minutes of debate beginning now. Yeah, my main concern is not with any of the rest of the changes with that specific section. The maybe ad-libbed part in order to commemorate holidays, specific tribes, events. The events and other content part not included is the main thing in there. That, and we saw this in the past, the chairman and I, or the previous chairman and I, were very dedicated to ensuring that we have some source of stability within the Senate as far as time constraints go. We were both very, one thing we shared was being somebody who wishes to see the business of the Senate conducted in an orderly fashion, including no filibustering, because that had been a problem in years past. When you leave it kind of open-ended like that, that's my main issue with it. in my personal opinion, I'm in favor of striking that part altogether. I think the land acknowledgement changes that you made are very admirable, and I like all the changes that you guys wrote, but I think that part specifically can just be a can of worms that leads to more filibustering happening.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I like the idea of keeping it open-ended because we don't know the specific reasons we would have to amend it on the floor. Would you be open to maybe after the word below adding, provided the statement is shorter than X minutes and putting an upper cap on that? Because that would allow them to ad-lib and add and give them the flexibility for circumstances that come up, but it would prevent any potential of filibustering for longer than 3 minutes.
How about this? Because you could, the other problem I have with that is you could just completely talk about, if it says other content, that's the part where you can just go on a rant about anything else, right? That doesn't relate to some of this legislation. How about it says, maybe ad-lib on the floor below in order to, how about any additional commemoration of holidays, specific tribes, events, or other content not included below shall be submitted to the Senate President in writing prior to the Senate meeting, and with the approval of the Senate President, then they can say it.
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so let's figure out a good way to word that then. Maybe ad-lib, floor, and included. Okay.
Which,
This section. So how about
yeah,
any additional commemoration? Here, I'm just gonna make a draft sheet and then y'all can spitball ideas out. Okay, so this is what we're.
and they would submit to the president and not the Senate secretary.
Yeah, no, Senate President, because the Senate President also is the one in charge of either reading the land acknowledgement themselves or designating somebody to read it. So I think that's just in line. Yeah, which would be any further commemoration of holidays, specific tribes, events, or events, and just leave the other content out. Holiday specific tribes.
Other relevant content with that.
Events. Or, yeah, because I guess then that's up to the discretion of the Senate President. Relevant content. For the commemoration of holidays, specific tribes, events, or other relevant content not included below shall be submitted to the Senate President prior to the media in writing. Be submitted in writing to the Senate President prior to the meeting, to the Senate meeting, and must be approved by the Senate President in order to be read.
Yeah.
To be read / spoken.
And this person can be different than the person who says the acknowledgement, right?
I would say no.
So it should be
Because you can do that in announcements if you want to talk about something else, but if you read the land acknowledgement, this is only for that. Any further commemoration of holidays, specific tribes, events, shall be submitted in writing. Well, see, then there's the problem of if we designate, or if somebody wants to write about something prior to the Senate meeting and they submit it in writing, then what if the Senate President doesn't pick them to read the land acknowledgement?
That's what I was saying.
But it has to be approved by the Senate President in order for it to be read, right?
Sure.
So they wouldn't be able to read any of this without being approved by the Senate President. So I think it'd be up to the Senate President to communicate and say, hey, I got it. We can either do that next week at the next Senate meeting, but that would be up to them to decide. Like, we already have someone reading something this week because 3 people submitted they wanted extra stuff talked about today, you know, so.
Sure.
Oh, we are past time.
Okay. I believe we can move to extend debate in Judiciary Committee. I believe, yeah. I could be wrong on that, but let's check. Let's do a quick rules and procedures check. Actually, how about let's do, I move to recess until so called back by the chair by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? All right, bringing down the question.